Welcome, everyone, to the Man in Search of Gold podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mangold, and I'm the founder of Argosy Wealth Management. This is the show where we share ideas, strategies, and history to help you improve your life one financial move at a time. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Man in Search of Gold podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mangold, and I'm the founder of Argosy Wealth Management. This is the show where we share ideas, strategies, and history to help you improve your life one financial move at a time. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Man in Search of Gold podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mangold, and I'm the founder of Argosy Wealth Management. This is the show where we share ideas, strategies, and history to help you improve your life one financial move at a time. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Man in Search of Gold podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mangold, and I'm the founder of Argosy Wealth Management. This is the show where we share ideas, strategies, and history to help you improve your life one financial move at a time. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Man in Search of Gold podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mangold, and I'm the founder of Argosy Wealth Management. This is the show where we share ideas, strategies, and history to help you improve your life one financial move at a time. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Man in Search of Gold podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mangold, and I'm the founder of Argosy Wealth Management. This is the show where we share ideas, strategies, and history to help you improve your life one financial move at a time. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the Man in Search of Gold podcast. I'm your host, Eric Mangold, and I'm the founder of Argosy Wealth Management. This is the show where we share ideas, strategies, and history to help you improve your life one financial move at a time. Let's get started.
We are off. Hey, everybody, back. Man in Search of Gold podcast. Continuing to roll here today. I'm excited with all of our guests. I'm excited because Jodi Lipka and I have known each other for a long time now, and I've been trying to get her on the podcast for a little bit, and I'm excited we could finally make it happen. So Jodi let me give you an intro to Jodi. She is a counsel in the private wealth services group at Stein Adler, where she advises high net worth individuals and families on estate planning, trust administration, and wealth transfer strategies. Her practice focuses on designing sophisticated, tax-efficient plans tailored to each client's goals, including wills, trusts, and lifetime gifting strategies. She works closely with wealth managers, accountants, and advisors to ensure seamless, coordinated planning across all aspects of a client's financial life. Jodi, thank you so much for being here. Finally.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I like to start with all of my guests, like, okay, so you're a trusted estate attorney, but what drove you to law? Like, were you the kid, like it's when you were 6 years old that had, nose in the book, like, I'm going to be a lawyer someday? Like, what was the path to law?
Definitely not that. So I'm not your traditional lawyer who grew up thinking that she was going to be a lawyer. So I can't say that I had that passion as a child. I actually wanted to be a doctor when I was a child, but that was quite problematic because I am deathly afraid of blood. Whenever I watch any of the medical television shows, my legs go immediately like jelly whenever blood comes on the stage or on the screen. So I think I learned quite early on that that was not going to be my career path. But going into college, I actually was pre-med. And even into the first summer after college, I took classes at Montclair State University in chemistry, which I actually really loved. So I think the science of it is very attractive, but the practice of medicine probably. I actually just like and am good at school, maybe fortunately or unfortunately. And so my parents were very passionate and supportive of education. And when I graduated from college, I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I decided to continue with education. And so if it wasn't going to be medical school, I guess it was law school.
Yep.
And when I started in law school, I actually never really thought I was going to practice. I wanted to do actually like a very specialized form of communications. And I was a communications major in college, which I think everyone kind of views as like a soft major. And it probably was a soft major, but I minored in Spanish. And I thought that I would kind of do this very kind of interesting communications law hybrid, which at the time wasn't really very popular. It was made popular by the show Scandal, which was kind of this like crisis communications, merging like politics and law, and you represent like high powered people and help them kind of spin their legal troubles into like PR, like what would be PR nightmares into PR wins. And when I graduated from law school with this kind of idea that I was going to do that, I realized very quickly that people hate lawyers. No one wanted to hire me because they were like, oh, well, lawyers shake the boat. Lawyers have all of these, ideas. Lawyers are litigious, and I mean, unfortunately, I still feel that people hate lawyers. So I had to kind of figure out what I was going to do with my law degree. And it wasn't going to be PR because literally no one wanted to hire me. I interviewed with a bunch of people and everyone was like, but you have this law degree. Why would you want to be a PR person? And I was like, because I want to do this very specific thing that you all do. And I think that that would be an asset to you. And they were like, no, we don't view it that way. We think that you're going to be a troublemaker. And I probably would have been a troublemaker because let's be honest, you've known me for a while now. I kind of am a troublemaker, but in a good way.
A little bit.
In the best way possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what I studying for the bar exam and what I loved about, things that I had learned, I practiced in a different sphere for a while before I became a trust and estates attorney or a private client services attorney, is I loved making connections with people. And I loved kind of, learning their little secrets, if you will. I loved reading gossip magazines. And so I know that I'm not allowed to share my clients' gossip, but I love learning about it. And I love being a trusted advisor to my clients. And I love being someone who can help them solve their problems. I like to think that I'm a good listener and a good problem solver and someone who people can rely on to tell their secrets to and help them work on the solutions to the things that other people might think are, maybe too torrid or too problematic to deal with. So that's something that I really enjoy as part of my practice. And I think that it suits me really well.
How long were you practicing before, and how long were you practicing, and what like area of law were you practicing before you started migrating? And how did that migration take place of going towards trust and estate planning?
It's for, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years in banking compliance law. So I was basically reviewing suspicious transactions for banks. It's now a little bit more popular and understood, but basically for money laundering work. And it was fun. I was with a group of people. We got to go on site to different banks. It was kind of like almost an extension of like college. We all lived in like a hotel for a period of time on site. So I made really good friends and great connections, and it was great. But the one thing that wasn't great is that I never saw a client, right? So you're working for a big institution and you're not making meaningful connections with the people that you're doing. So that wasn't great. And then the financial crisis of 2008, 2009 happened. I was actually working in these roles as a contract attorney. I wasn't actually a full-time employee. So the first people that they cut in those situations are the people that are the most expensive. So who are the people that are most expensive are the people who are there on contracts because you get paid hourly. You don't get paid on a salary. And I essentially became unemployed very quickly. So I had to kind of pivot and decide what I wanted to do. And I went to a group of my like really trusted contacts from law school. I had made really nice connections with a lot of my professors and said, hey, I'm going to go back to school again. Because like I said, I was really good at school and I'm thinking about getting an advanced degree in something. A lot of people don't know that you can go and be a lawyer and then you can get on top of that like an additional degree. So that degree is called an LLM. It's a master's of law in something. And so I decided that I was going to try to get this master's of law because it was a really hard time to get a job. No one was hiring, right? The world was in financial crisis. Everyone was firing people, laying people off. And so I spoke to a couple of my professors and they were like, look, if you're thinking about getting a master's of law in something, there's really only one thing that you want to get it in, and that's tax. And I was like, tax? Like, that sounds terrible. Who likes tax? And to be very honest, I hadn't taken a tax course in law school and I hadn't taken a trust and estates course in law school. Because again, I didn't even think I was going to be a practicing lawyer. I thought I was going to do this special communications thing. So in law school, I didn't even do the things that you're quote unquote like supposed to do, right? Most people, when they go to law school, they're like very focused and they're like, I want to be a litigator. I want to be a public defender. I want to be, an M&A attorney. And they do the things that they're supposed to do. So they write on law review. They're in moot court. They're in all these things. I didn't care. Like I was there to do well in school, to make friends, to sometimes have a good time. Honestly, I wrote on the newspaper. I made good friends. I obviously did well in school. But I didn't do the extracurricular things that you're supposed to do as a lawyer. I applied and wrote and did the things to get on like a law journal, which is like an extracurricular writing thing that law firms, when they're hiring, especially the big law firms, like really like for you to have. And I applied and I got on, and then I decided that it wasn't really something that I wanted to do. And I didn't really feel that, especially because I didn't think that this was the path that I was going, that I should take the spot away from someone else who really thought that this was something that they wanted. And maybe that was too altruistic for me. I also didn't want the responsibility, to be very honest. It's a lot of extra work. I probably should have in hindsight, in retrospect. But I was 22 years old. So
Right. What do I want to be when I grow up?
Right. I had a boyfriend. I liked spending time with him. I, wanted to travel in the summertime, or, I was living in Maryland. My parents lived in New Jersey. I was coming home a lot, or I was spending time with my boyfriend. At one point, I thought I was going to transfer law schools to New York. So, I think I was focused more on maybe my lifestyle than my future career, which, I was a kid. I didn't think about that. And honestly, I don't think that I would have done it different. Like maybe I should have done it differently, but I don't think I would have done it differently. I feel very happy in the choices that I've made. And frankly, I've had really good success in my career without those choices. And so I think we put a lot of pressure on our young people to make those decisions before they're ready. I don't know. You're a parent. I'm sure you're going through those decisions now with, your daughter. And
My
you're going
daughter,
to continue to make those, suggestions to her. But my parents always encouraged me to kind of make the decisions that were right for me.
Yeah.
I think I made good choices.
Yeah. So was it a mentor? Was it a professor that said, why don't you look into the trust and estate world of law? Who like, or is it you self-driving?
So they basically said, don't get an LLM in anything but tax. And I said, okay. So then I started to kind of like do my research on what that would kind of look like. I guess like on the like parallel path to that, I really liked trust and estates, and well, I guess wills and trusts are two subjects that you study for the bar exam. Because even though I didn't want to practice, I still took the New York and New Jersey bars when I graduated law school, became licensed in both jurisdictions. Obviously, I was practicing.
Mm-hmm.
law, so I had my license. And those were the two subjects when I was studying that I was like, oh, I really like this. I really get this. It was, when you study for the bar, it's hell for basically 2 months. You just graduated law school. All you want to do is relax, and then you basically have like 2 days, and then you start immediately studying for the bar for 2 months, and then you like have to take this exam that you studied for, and then you don't get your results for like 3 months, and you don't know if you passed or you failed.
Wait for
So
3 months after all that?
basically, yeah,
That's
I think
torture.
I took the exam in July, and I think you get your results in like November. So yeah.
That's brutal.
So, I mean, luckily I passed in my
Mhm.
first try in both New York and New Jersey. But yeah, so these were topics that I really liked when I was studying, even though I didn't take them in school. And so tax and trust and estates dovetail really nicely together, which I don't think that a lot of people understand or know necessarily off the top of their heads. So it kind of was like this nice synergy for me. And then I had to find a school that was willing to accept me, even though I hadn't taken any of basically like the prerequisite courses to be in a tax LLM program. And I was really lucky that I found one that was willing to work with me. And I basically enrolled in the summer of 2009 at New York Law School because they were basically the only school that would take me without having a prerequisite basic tax class or a prerequisite trust and estates class. And I thank them very much. And they're kind of like, they're a lesser known institution because everyone knows NYU, but no one really knows New York law. But it's a very, very highly regarded program, at least here in New York. And they were great to me. And I'm happy to be an alumni there. And Ann Thomas and Bill LaPiana were wonderful professors, mentors, and I thank them very much for giving me the opportunity. I still see them frequently out and about. I've run into Bill LaPiana I'm on a circuits court committee, and it's always nice to see him. And I think I haven't seen Ann Thomas in a while. I think she might have moved actually out of New York, if I'm not mistaken. So
They're professors that would you view them as mentors?
I don't know that they're mentors, but they were certainly like integral in helping me navigate
Okay.
this path. I have many mentors who are people that I've worked with over the years. So, but they were people who definitely gave me an opportunity to pursue this career path. Because again, I needed people who are willing to give me the flexibility to pursue the LLM degree, who, that program was mostly at night. So I ended up getting my first job as a trust and estates attorney while I was going to school at night, which I only would have gotten because I was in that program. So, I mean, they were facilitators of my.
That's great. So you do have that LLM degree then. That's awesome. So, okay. So LLM degree, then you got to say, all right, you got to go find a firm. You were already practicing for a period of time. So then, but now you're changing genres, right? So was that a challenge then to say, okay, I'm an attorney, but now I'm changing my flavor. What's that experience like?
It was definitely difficult. I definitely made some sacrifices. I started my career reverse commuting from Manhattan to Bergen County, New Jersey. I worked for a very small firm with a group of attorneys who definitely took a chance on me. I would say one thing that I will say to young people who are starting out is where you go to school makes a difference, not in terms of the academics, but in terms of the alumni base. I got my job at Davidson Social Ragsdale and Cohen from Alan Davidson, who I would say is a mentor, someone who, took a chance on me because I went to the University of Michigan. So go Blue. His son was at the University of Michigan. I would say Michigan, my parents paid. I was lucky. My parents paid for me to go to school. So I should say that up front. I have very supportive parents. They hemmed and hawed about paying out-of-state tuition because I'm from New Jersey. And I don't know what people know about public universities and other schools, but if you're in state, you pay one rate. If you're out of state, you pay one rate. I went to college and I started college in 2000, a very long time ago. You're about to send someone off to college. So I can't even imagine what it costs to send someone to the University of Michigan now. But my parents were like, the out-of-state tuition is so much more than in-state tuition, but it was a very good investment for them because it paid off.
Yeah.
Because I would not have gotten this I shouldn't say I would not have gotten the job, but one of the things that sealed the deal for me was that I had gone to the University of Michigan. So, and I worked there at Davidson Social for about a year. I was going to school at night, so I was reverse commuting in the morning, then leaving Bergen County, New Jersey, and taking the bus into Manhattan, and then going to school at night, and then getting home at 10 o'clock and passing out and doing the whole thing all
Yeah.
over again. So, I mean, it was a lot, but I was learning things in practice during the day and then getting to like learn the mechanics of it or the science or I don't know, the education of it at night. And that was really
Definitely. Now, okay, so now you're now in trust and estate. So talk to me about your first few years as a trust and estate attorney. Is it eat what you kill, or is it you're working part of a team and then there's a certain number of clients that come in that need trust and estate work? How does that work?
So I would say that I've always worked as part of a team. A lot of people do go off on their own. That's not something I've done. So for me, I've always worked with someone more senior to me, who is typically the person bringing in the clients. I would say that's up until recently. So I would say over the past 5 years, I've started building my own practice for myself. So now my practice is a little bit more of a hybrid where I'm serving other people's clients and my own clients. So I think that that's what's become really rewarding over the last several years because, instead of just, doing other people's work, I'm getting to build the relationships with people that is something that I've always dreamed about.
Yeah.
I think also what I want to point out is that you asked about mentors before.
Yeah.
And I think that I've been really lucky in my career to have really generous people who really wanted to invest in younger attorneys. And that's not always the case. But even when I was servicing other people's clients, those really generous mentors would bring me into the client meetings, would sit with me at the table, would introduce me to their clients, would really encourage me to build my own relationships with those clients because, in order to be successful building your own book of business, you need to have the tools to be able to sit and speak with a client, to know the right questions to ask, and for clients to really feel comfortable with you. And yes, some people are innately gifted and can walk into a room and schmooze and, can get the information that is necessary. But you really learn, the nuances of how to talk to people about really sensitive subjects by observing others. And I've been really lucky to have, those kind of people in my career. And I feel very fortunate.
They're huge. They're huge. It's just, as you think about mentors and it's like, they're worth their weight in gold times two. If
100%.
if you get a good mentor, it really is great. So, all right. So now let's dive in. So can you, I talk to clients about their estate plan and it's always, I think there's this, I'm always going to get around to a kind of mentality. And then, there's usually some catalyst that makes them motivated to get things done. So, but first, can you tell people what is it like? What is trust and estate? What are you trying to accomplish?
Wow, that's that's the $1 million question. I mean, I think it can be different things for different people, right? So it's not an all-encompassing question. Different clients come to me with different needs, different wants, different desires. And I think it also can look different at different phases of people's lives. So I would say in general, most of my clients are coming to me because they need to plan, unfortunately, for their ultimate demise, right? Which
Yeah.
sounds like so abysmal,
Yeah.
right? So that you're planning for the disposition of your assets upon your death, right? But what I do is so much larger than that, right? Because our practice here is so much more sophisticated than that. So it's not just people's basic estate planning documents. We do a lot of sophisticated wealth transfer work. And so beyond just what happens at death, we're helping people structure their estate plans to make gifts during life. And also we do income tax planning work. And so all of these things coupled together is the point of it is to make the ultimate disposition of your assets also taxable.
Mhm.
I think part of what our job is and what our struggle is making sure that people's ultimate wishes are done in the way that they want, but to do it in the most tax efficient way possible. And then there's an entire different subset of our practice, which is aimed at administering people's estates when they pass away. And then also, unfortunately, dealing with people who aren't happy with how they've been treated under, a loved one's estate plan, or maybe even not a loved one's estate plan, and counseling them through those aspects. So I don't do litigation. My firm does do litigation. And if it's not a matter that we would like to handle, we obviously can make referrals. My sister happens to be a litigator and does a fair amount of estate litigation. So I often enjoy referring to her, but a part of my practice involves kind of like representation of individuals or I guess sometimes banks or trust companies in pre or post litigation phases. And, I often speak to people, just about like what their rights are under the law in certain situations.
Yeah, unfortunately, you and I have had conversations about a couple of my clients that had an inheritance and family members start bickering. And, I always think, the last thing a parent wants is to pass on assets and then have their kids just start getting the claws out and going at each other about the assets. And it's unfortunate. And I remember you said this to me one time, when sometimes the money just does this to people. And if it didn't, you probably wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
That's
Unfortunately.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think that I don't know that parents want their kids to fight, but I think that sometimes parents are blind to family situations. And so part of my job is also to investigate family dynamics in obviously a very gentle way, right? I often say that a lot of my job obviously is the law, but a lot of my job is actually a bit of psychology. I would say most of my job is psychology a lot of the time.
Feel the same. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that that's part of what makes, our jobs unique and enjoyable sometimes. Often, sometimes makes us want to pull our hair out too.
You have an easier time doing that than I do.
Assume that's what happens. But, we inhabit these spaces for our clients, and
Yeah.
I remember at my first job, I mentioned Davidson Social. I had a client, her husband had passed away. She, didn't really know much about finances. She had zero financial literacy, as a lot of women of that age, do, unfortunately. And, the estate was not very large, but she had never really written a check before or anything like that. And she would call me every Friday. Every Friday without fail, I would get a call from her. And she wouldn't ask a legal question. She just really wanted to talk.
Yeah.
And, I really found a lot of enjoyment in our calls, not because we were talking about anything major or substantial, but I felt like I was offering her a connection. And she had children. It's not like she didn't have a family. But I felt like I was offering her something that she wasn't getting from someone else. And that was kind of when I knew that I had kind of chosen the right area of law.
Sometimes it takes that realization to materialize. Yeah. I had that.
It's in my first 6 months of practicing.
Yeah. I had an experience with clients during Hurricane Sandy. And it was, even though I don't do homeowners and auto insurance, it was one of the things where when I review it a lot. And when I reviewed theirs, I was like, for where you guys live out in Long Island, this looks really, really low coverage. Like why don't we have, somebody that's licensed in property and casualty insurance, take a look and review it. And they did. And they said, yeah, this is really low for their contents, for, their homeowners. And then they had a real problem with Hurricane Sandy. And not only and then as part of the home auto and home, we also did their estate plan and, got their wills in place. And a couple of months after Sandy had passed, he sent me a note and just said, hey, you know what? It felt really good to know that we had a wingman in you, and we had so many things that we had done that we probably wouldn't have done if we weren't working with you, and just thank you very much. And I'm like, that's where, talk about worthless weight in gold times two again. That feeling is just so amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think adding value is something that you and I are both really passionate about for our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me about those people that think in their mind, and it's funny because I get this a lot. I can't afford an estate, but I'm not I'm not a super wealthy person. I don't need an estate plan. What's the message to those folks? Because I know what to say, but I want to hear it from the expert.
Well, if you don't have an estate plan, the law is going to tell you what your estate plan is. And I think that people misunderstand that, right?
Mhm.
So essentially, like all things in life, the law will dictate what your estate plan is, even if you don't have a will, right? So I practice in both New York and New Jersey. So what people in New York don't understand, right, is that if you are married, you have kids, if you die, your wife basically gets half and your kids get half. Most people don't understand that, and that's not what they would want.
Wait, hold on. In the state of New York, so if I'm married in the state, and I live in the state of New York with kids, and I pass away, my wife gets half and the kids get half?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, there's like a couple things that your wife gets. I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's like the family Bible and the first like $50,000. But yeah, like otherwise everything else gets split 50%.
And by the way, for the audience, I didn't set Jodi up. I didn't know that was the law. That's crazy. I didn't set you up for the podcast. And I would think 99% of residents in New York have no idea that's the law.
Correct. So,
Oh.
and I mean, it even gets more complicated when you have minor children who then get to inherit 50% of your assets. And you didn't set up any sort of like trust mechanism for them, because then the courts get to come in and play referee on your kids' money for however many years they have until they become adults. And so, sure, like, yes, you probably don't need an estate plan at a certain level, but there's difference between like needs and shoulds, right?
Yeah.
So I would say in a lot of situations, and we've talked about this, right? You've said like, oh, I have this client, what do you think about this? And, a lot of times people can do, an estate plan through using joint accounts or rights of survivorship, things like that on real property ownership or tenancy by the entirety in states that have that. So you probably on the first step I'm talking about with a married couple, right? Can get around the majority of the issues by having joint ownership on things, making sure beneficiary designations are done correctly on retirement accounts, because let's be honest, most people's assets are in retirement accounts or in joint accounts anyway. But especially when you have a single individual, you really need to be doing something a little bit more than just that. I mean, there's a number of tax reasons why, consulting with an attorney is important. But yeah, I mean, the major thing is that if you don't have a plan in place, the law is going to tell you how your assets are going to go. And then, you get to the next question. I'm sure what you're going to ask is like, so why is LegalZoom not the answer? Why should someone be coming to an attorney and not doing it themselves?
You read my mind.
I mean, so, we as practitioners, there's a million things that my mind can think through because I've seen it happen in practice, because I've seen litigations happen, because there's just innumerable things that AI cannot think about that my brain can, that there's inevitably going to be holes in your LegalZoom document that it can't account for.
Mhm.
So, and now also, not to speak badly of any client that uses
Sure.
LegalZoom, like there's just things that you don't know need to go into the document, assets that you don't know you need to account for, or that need to be dealt with specially. And if the whole point of doing an estate plan is to make sure you're protected, if you don't protect yourself against certain things, what was the point of doing it in the first place? Then you might as well have just done nothing.
Yeah. So in that regard, have you seen situations where people have actually come to you with documents that they have prepared off of LegalZoom and you're like, yeah, we can't use any of this stuff?
I mean, I've actually been lucky enough to never had a client come to me with something that they've done on LegalZoom and asked me to use it.
Okay.
So maybe they're too embarrassed to bring it to me. And luckily, when we do our documents, the first thing we do in all of our documents is we immediately revoke anything that has been done previously. So usually when you do a will, the first clause in a will revokes a prior will.
Gotcha.
Our powers of attorney have language revoking prior powers of attorney, things of that nature. Trusts are a little different or more difficult, but I've honestly never seen a irrevocable trust drafted by LegalZoom, and I hope I never do. So don't come to me with one. But I guess there's a first time for everything. How about you? I think that you mentioned to me that you've seen some bad things happen because of LegalZoom.
I had a client one time bring me her documents that she prepared off of LegalZoom, and and maybe the platform has gotten better, but it was literally like, okay, I pass my dog, my Sony PlayStation. It was like itemizing things, and it was like 4 pages, it just, it was like one of those things where even though I'm not an attorney, you can read, I read wills all the time, and you read it and you're just like, this seems just so massively incomplete. And you and I didn't know each other at the time. And then when I passed it to a trusted estate attorney that I knew at the time, and they said, yeah, they're like, this isn't even like worthy of a table of contents. Like, it's just not even, it's so limited. It's so incomplete. Like, it's just, he literally skimmed it. He's like, yeah, I would just redo everything just because it's more, it would cause more damage than good, or more harm than good, by using these documents. So,
I mean, I guess in some situations, I'd have to think about what they might be. But I guess in
yeah.
some situations, having something may be better than nothing. Like if you know that you the other part of it is that executing a will, like the actual execution of it, is so important,
Yeah.
right? Like doing it properly with 2 witnesses, making sure that you published it and declared it to be your will. Like all those things kind of factor into the validity of the document as
Mhm.
well. So, I mean, just printing it out and signing it does not a will make necessarily.
Yeah.
I mean, some states have holographic wills and all these other things, but you'd be surprised. So
It's funny that you bring that up, because I did have a situation like that a couple of years ago where a client said, I asked them about their estate plan, like, oh yeah, we've got it done. We've got it done. And then just through like conversation, it turns out that they did have everything done, just nothing was signed. And I basically said, yeah, so you don't have anything done. Like, no, we do. I'm like, well, it's not signed. It's not executed. Like, you don't have what you think you have,
yeah.
type of thing. So,
And the worst is when you have something that you think is good, you've sent it around, and then you go and you want to change it, and you've told people about it, and then you decide that you're going to take people out of it.
mm,
That causes like so much drama. So you
I
should
always
also
say
be
to people,
careful. You should
yeah,
be careful about who you talk to your estate plans about. That's all I have to say.
I hear you. I tell people all the time, when you're doing your wishes, you don't have to tell those people that you're inheriting or disinheriting what your plans are, because you don't want to fight that fight. It's like, these are your assets and your wishes.
100%. 100%.
What if you had to say, okay, these are the things that, if you're married with kids, have assets, as a bare bones, what are the documents you think people should have?
So
And
to
explain them.
start
Bet.
and explain them,
And explain them,
of course.
please.
So, I mean, I think as like a basic set of documents that I do for my clients that come to me.
Yeah.
So, to be very upfront, I do not just do basic wills anymore. Again, my practice is mostly situs in New York and New Jersey. But I would say, like, as a general rule across the board, I would say this applies in Florida, this applies in California. I would say New Jersey is a little bit more flexible based on what I'm going to say, but in general, practitioners have moved away from just using the basic will. And I would say that it's because of a couple different factors, particularly in New York, Florida, California, other jurisdictions. The probate process has become really difficult. And I can explain briefly what probate is.
Please.
Probate is the procedure where the person who is named as your executor, who is the person who would be in charge of your estate, basically, takes your will to the court, who is in charge of estates in your jurisdiction. In New York and in New Jersey, it's called the surrogate. In other jurisdictions, I can't really attest to what it would be, but that's what it is here. And goes to the court, gives them the will. The surrogate verifies that the will was executed properly, right? And is a valid document. And then gives the executor a piece of paper, we call it letters testamentary, so that the executor can act as the legal representative of your estate. Now, other jurisdictions sometimes calls the executor a personal representative. They might have a different term for what the letters are called. They might not be called a surrogate. They might be called a magistrate. They might just be called a judge. But in almost all cases, that process is the same. So people have become very obsessed with avoiding probate. Like, I troll Facebook groups a lot. I never write. I like to read what people are saying. It's enjoyable. Sometimes I use it as like an outlet. But yeah, like I would say across the country, people are pretty obsessed with avoiding probate. And so the way that you avoid probate is you don't just use a will, you use a will with a combination of a revocable trust. So REVOCABL, revocable trust. And how do you avoid probate, though, if you still have assets in your own name? You have to move all of your assets that are in your own name into your revocable trust during your colleague who I really liked this metaphor that she used for a revocable trust. So I can't take credit for this, but she basically said that a revocable trust is a suitcase, right? It's your suitcase that you're packing for your final destination. It's a little bit morbid, but I mean, everything that I do is morbid. And as you go throughout your life, you pack your suitcase and you're packing your suitcase with all of your assets. And so that when you finally leave on your trip to your final destination, your suitcase is packed. So I don't know. Either you like it or you hate it. I don't know. But I feel like clients kind of can relate to it as an idea. I used to talk about like jean pockets. So like you want to move everything from one pocket to another, but it's still your pair of jeans, because clients always get caught up in the idea of like, well, are they still my assets? Do I still have access to them? So yes, you still have access to all of your assets in your revocable trust when you're alive. They still are yours. They're still taxable in your estate, all of these concepts. But, you know, the concept is that you're avoiding probate by having a revocable trust and a very simple pour over will. So God forbid we don't get everything moved from one jean pocket to the other or packed in your suitcase or whatever you want to call it. I think I said a metaphor, but it's probably an analogy. I don't know. I'm not an English
We know what you meant. All that schooling.
So again, wasn't an English major, communications, soft major. If you want to ask me in Spanish, maybe I can answer. But so again, so I would say those two documents. And then in addition to that, I would say a healthcare proxy and living will, which are honestly the two documents that clients come to me the most for. Like those are the two things that they are very focused on, which I completely understand. And
can you explain the difference?
Attorney, sure. A healthcare proxy is the document that identifies the person who would make your healthcare decisions for you if you are unable to make them for yourself. So it's like
a power of attorney, but for health related.
But for healthcare decisions, correct. And then a living will is the document that essentially explains how you would want your healthcare decisions to be made. So most people call that like your pull the plug document or your DNR. So if you're in a medically irreversible condition, comatose state, you're not expected to make a meaningful recovery, it's a list of the things that you don't want to be done to you for medical treatment. I would say most of my clients want that document. Some of them do not.
Mm.
And then a lot of the times that document also has instructions for organ donation. Although I would say for my clients who do want to be organ donors, I always recommend that be on their driver's license, because by the time, unfortunately, if you really are in the condition to donate organs, most of the time that document is not getting to the.
Got it. Okay. Does one override the other? Or do they work in tandem, the driver's license and the living will?
Well, I would recommend that they be congruent with each other. So you don't want instructions in one that says, I don't want to be an organ donor, and one that says, I do want to be an organ donor. Because also, if your healthcare proxy is making decisions for you and one says one thing and one says another thing, how are they supposed to make the decision? I think what's important to glean from this is that whomever you're appointing as your agent should have a very clear understanding of what your wishes are and should be able to put your wishes into action. So if you have any hesitation in who you are appointing, if they're not going to be able to, pull the plug, if that's what you've asked them to do, then they shouldn't be the person that you're appointing.
And okay, so we've got your revocable trust, your basic will, healthcare proxy, living will. What else?
Power of attorney, which you mentioned, which is the document that is the appointing an agent to make financial decisions.
Everything but healthcare.
Pretty much. I mean, sometimes though, healthcare and financial can also overlap. So, I mean, I would say that there is some overlap between the documents, because what happens if you need money for healthcare?
Okay. What happens if you need money for healthcare?
And we make provisions.
Okay.
So the financial person has to pay for your health.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, what I would say is that the majority of the time, people do appoint the same people, but it doesn't always happen to be the case. But in that case, your medical person would go to your financial person and ask for the money.
I get asked often about trusts, and you touched upon revocable trust a moment ago, and kind of like that is a way or a vehicle to help you avoid probate. And I know there's a lot of flavors of trust, but the question that I get, I want to get a trust. It's like, can you explain in its basic form what a trust does and what its game plan is for having a trust, basically?
Well, it's like asking, like, I want to get a car. There's a lot of levels. I mean, you can have one that just drives and get you to point A to point B, and there's one that you're going to drive and it's going to be, super luxurious and it's going to do a lot of things for you, right? So there's some that even drive themselves. So trusts, like you said, come in all different flavors and they accomplish all different things. So we talked about irrevocable trust. There are also irrevocable trusts, so trusts that cannot be revoked, and they serve completely different purposes. So I would say in general, irrevocable trusts are done for purely estate tax planning goals. And I would say in general, because there's a lot of reasons why you might do an irrevocable trust for other reasons. But I would say in our practice, they're done for that. So to move assets out of someone's taxable estate into a pot for other people so that they can benefit other people, so that the person who is creating them no longer has access to them. So to benefit someone other than the person who is moving assets into that trust. Why would you do that? Well, you have enough money for yourself. You want to benefit other people, usually a spouse, usually future descendants. You have a taxable estate, whether that is federally taxable or state taxable. I don't want people's eyes to glaze over while they're listening to this podcast. Yeah. So you and I had talked about the fact that we weren't going to go into a lot of, estate tax stuff. But just in general, right now, each individual federally can pass $15 million to whomever tax-free. After $15 million, there is an estate tax that is subject to inflation every year. Right now, as it stands, who knows? It depends. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. And New Jersey does not currently have an estate tax. It does have an inheritance tax, which a lot of people forget about. which imposes a tax on transfers to people who are not lineally related to you. And people forget about that, but it goes up to 16%. And that is a hefty tax.
Yeah.
So people always forget about that. And in New York right now, the cap is actually at a little over $7 million. And you cannot combine them with your spouse. So like federally, you can not use your $15 million and your spouse can then transfer $30 million. In New York, if you don't use it, then you lose it. So we're planning a little bit differently for married couples in New York than we are at the federal level. And then there's also a federal generation skipping transfer tax and a federal gift tax. And there are also some other taxes, but I don't want everyone to just immediately turn the podcast off. So
Yeah, right.
if you have questions about taxes, seek counsel from an accountant or a tax attorney or someone like me.
So where can people find you, contact you? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, all of my contact information is on our website, which I guess is steinadlerlaw.com, I assume. But
the right website will be in the description for here.
Correct.
Sure.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. You can Google me, Jodi Lipka. I'm on LinkedIn. You can reach out to Eric. He'll give you my contact information.
Awesome. Jodi, I loved having you here. I'm so glad we were finally able to make this happen. And thank you for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure. I'm happy to come back anytime you want. Happy to talk
round
about other flavors of trust or flavors of ice cream. I don't know if you know, but that's something I'm particularly passionate about.
Yeah, well, if you keep going on all the flavors of trust, then people will definitely probably start switching off, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, especially if I keep going on about the flavors of tax.
Right. So, but awesome stuff. Jodi, thank you again. Everybody remember, when it comes to your own retirement plan, your own investment plan, your own wealth building plan, do as the Boy Scouts do and have the map. The time to have the map is before you enter the woods. And thank you for everybody for listening. And
Thank you for watching and listening to the Man in Search of Gold podcast, hosted by Eric Mangold of Argosy Wealth Management. To find out more about how we work to guide our clients on their financial journey, please check out www.emangold.com. That's www.emangold.com. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed the show.